Hi guys, welcome to Signal Path. Today we are talking about the Halcyon Blue from Origin Effects. The Halcyon Blue is one of now 3 overdrives that take historic circuits and bring them into a modern context with quality of life improvements, sonic improvements, and a couple of features that are unique to Origin's design approach. The Halcyon Blue specifically is taking the Bluesbreaker circuit and improving it in a variety of ways, from very, very basic things like adding a dry volume that allows you to get your dry kind of clean tone and pass that through to the output, which is very, very useful, as we'll see, but also their adaptive circuitry and just kind of their own spin on the circuit that adds a bit of gain, adds a little bit more edge to the overall sound. But if you think about this as a 3-knob drive with a dry blend added on top of it, you also kind of have 2 different flavors, and then on top of that, 3 levels of kind of their adaptive circuitry, kind of going from none to some to maximum. Within this, there are just a myriad of sounds, and I think one of the most important things about this for me is that dry volume knob, because this is one thing that I've seen with many, many overdrives. As you crank things, as you get to kind of the weirder, more extreme settings, it actually becomes way less useful because you start to lose definition, you start to lose low end, there are certain things that you miss about the tone before you cranked it or before you changed that thing. And what the dry volume allows you to do is it allows you to take this to the far extremes and bring it back with that dry volume. And so as a result, the Bluesbreaker, which at high gain settings can sometimes sound a little bit crowded, it can sound a little bit muddy at points. What this allows you to do is take things much, much, much further and still achieve sounds that feel great and balanced by just kind of bringing fine control to that dry signal. It's clever. It's really, simple, but the results and kind of the benefit is very, very powerful. So we're going to jump into the sounds. There's a lot to explore, and the just Bluesbreaker archetype is one of my absolute favorite guitar sounds, so I'm very, very excited to go over the noises that this makes. But before we do that, if you like this kind of content, it would mean a ton to me if you'd go ahead and like this video, which lets YouTube know to recommend this kind of content in the future, and subscribe to the channel to follow along. Let's dive into it. All right, let's take a look at the Cali 76 Stacked Edition. I'm playing my Balaguer Ambient Espada into the Cali 76 Stacked Edition, which is driving into the Halcyon Blue. We've got a touch of reverb from the Strymon Bigsky, and that's headed out to the Quad Cortex, which is serving as our amps, and the Panther Preamps, which are kind of bringing things into the interface. Sounds like this. Here's the Halcyon Blue. So let's walk quickly through the controls here. We have level, which is going to be our overall volume. Let's bring that up just a bit to where it's kind of around unity. Next we have drive, which is going to be our overall kind of level of distortion. Tone is going to be kind of our overall level of brightness. To the left is darker, to the right is a little bit brighter. And then finally, dry is going to be the dry blend that is passed straight from the input out to the output. middle we have two toggles. The top toggle is going to be the adapt circuitry, which basically determines how much the mids are pushed based on dynamics, with kind of 0 being off in the standard Bluesbreaker approach, 1 being the kind of the minimum setting, and 2 being the maximum setting. Let's kind of listen to how this changes things as we roll back the volume. If we roll the volume up, back down a little bit, makes things feel, I would say, like a little bit more kind of realistic in the amp-like sense. And if we move that to the second position, it's even more pronounced. It almost kind of feels like a filter if you move it too quickly. You can kind of feel that moving. And finally, we have the Bluesbreaker versus mod switch, which right now we're listening to Origin's take on the circuit. But if you want something that is kind of faithful to the original, we can flip that switch to the left. In this mode, it's a lot quieter, it's a little bit cleaner, and there, I would say that it is a little bit more preampy versus the mod version. It's just, I would say, more of an kind of strictly overdrive sound. But this is kind of where I like to start with this pedal. So we'll start with adapt all the way off and kind of work our way around the settings. Dry at noon is right about where the original Bluesbreaker kind of put the dry blend. We definitely need a little bit of makeup gain to kind of make back what we lost with the standard Bluesbreaker mode. If we brighten it up a hair, this is one of my favorite places to live with a Bluesbreaker because it's just so pretty and articulate. If we add in a little bit of the adapt on position 1, settings that are like kind of gritty and big. And honestly, that's the setting that I probably enjoy the most, but with the adapt and just kind of pulling back the volume a little bit, does do a lot to kind of bring out like the fundamental of that top note and kind of give it some definition and some teeth, which is really, really cool. If we max out the gain in this mode or kind of get close to it, so let's talk about why I like the dry control, because this is actually a really good example. If we turn the dry all the way off, sounds good. It is definitely a sound, but there are some guitars and some instances where I want a little bit more of the clarity of the guitar to come through. Because that has a great drive character. I love the way that sounds, but there's like something more that I'm looking for. And so we bring that drive back in. Back to kind of the standard halfway. Opens it way up. It just has much of a broader view of the guitar. It feels like I can kind of mix from that what I need. If I want the highs, if I want the mids or the lows, it's all kind of there and in balanced proportion. But if I want to push it past that point, I can increase now. So kind of in this setting, it almost feels more like a clean tone that's adding a little bit of this kind of interesting edge of breakup hair to the back end of the sound. Gets into like that like vintage fuzz, like rolled back kind of feeling tone. Really, really nice. I would say that generally speaking, the dry signal for me tends to live around noon anyways, but it's nice to be able to kind of have the full spectrum and let that be a choice that I have as a user rather than kind of a circuit design feature. Now on the really low gain end of things, if we pump the volume and bring back the drive, this becomes one of my favorite clean tones. If we turn this off for a second, you can kind of hear what it's doing. Sounds good, but it feels like a little bit kind of far away, a little bit small. But then in this mode, it feels like the mids and the low mids are kind of a little bit closer. It feels like the guitar at large is just like closer to me. So if you've ever like struggled with like fullness in your guitar and you want something, especially I think for like ambient and cleaner playing, this does a wonderful job of that. Just bringing like really musical fullness to your playing. Without feeling muddy or kind of crowded in the low mids. So let's shift over to hear kind of the differences between the Bluesbreaker setting and the mod. If we're just keeping the settings we have currently. A lot more saturation. Definitely fuller and a little bit bigger. It's so fun. You know, if you want something that feels a little bit less hairy and aggressive, you can bring that tone back a little bit. And honestly, with the mod setting, I feel like you have a lot more kind of room in the extremes to still sound musical. I think tone all the way up or all the way down on the Bluesbreaker mode gets a little bit kind of gross in my opinion, but I feel like I can push the tone on the mod version a little bit further and still feel like I'm happy with the sound that I'm getting. So like all the way down, for instance. Middle position, and then bridge. Now if I killed the dry signal, this starts to feel really crazy and kind of cool. This is the drive mostly down. We have a lot of room from here to go up in terms of overall gain. A little more volume, I suppose. Pretty crazy. And then kind of about the most extreme it gets. I think taming this with the tone is kind of a necessity. Does that kind of like all-out saturation in a pretty cool way. Most of the time, that's not where you're going to end up living. So when we're talking about lead tones, I think the mod mode is one of my favorite sounds because I think it does such a good job of creating really great kind of top end clarity and aggression. And so let's kick on kind of a delay and reverb combo and hear how that sounds as like specifically like a big kind of psyche lead sound. A little vibrato from the Mobius. That most drives tend to play pretty poorly with modulation, but this has kind of been one of my favorite sort of sounds to mess with lately. Especially with that, you know, you can kind of roll back and get kind of a clean version of it. And as soon as you're kind of full throttle, so that's the Halcyon Blue. Whether you're looking for something that's going to take your lead tones into kind of like that really clear and pretty crystalline sound, or just looking for something that blurs the line between preamp and overdrive, this has a ton of versatility to it. I think it is one of the finest expressions of the Bluesbreaker approach that I've seen. So definitely worth checking out. I'm a massive fan of everything Origin makes. So that should come as no surprise, but I am a major fan of the Halcyon Blue, and this is something that's living on my live board at the moment. But that's about it. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll catch you on the next one.